So, Immortals Fenyx Rising released last week, a fantastical journey through the world of Greek mythology, as well as the latest game everyone is comparing to The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. I recently finished it and I'm here to give my thoughts on it. Is this just a cheap knockoff or something more? Let's start with the visuals. The game is extremely bright and whimsical, cartoony, sort of a Pixar vibe, which is great for the overall theme they're going with. I love the overall visual design. The environments look like a fairy tale, and the enemies have this corrupt, evil look that is at the same time comical and often cute. This is one of those games I really enjoyed just flying around or riding around on my mount. Lots of cool mounts to tame in the game too. But yeah, I did enjoy just traveling around and taking things in. I already did a video now specifically on the Switch version, so for those of you more concerned about that version, how it looks, how it performs, you can go check that out. But I will say I do feel the visuals do suffer significantly in that version. A lot of the life gets taken out of it, but it's still tolerable and looks fine, I think, particularly in handheld mode, which I'll touch on that a bit later. My only problem with the visuals in this game, and it's kind of minor, but also kind of a big issue, is the face of your character, Fenyx, the protagonist. Specifically more so the facial animations. Now, you can customize your character, choose male or female, different face styles, beard, hairstyle, and all that. But no matter what I did, I felt like the character just didn't fit in. I felt like they should be in a different game, just didn't look as good as other characters. Like in cutscenes, when you're standing alongside the gods, the face just, it looks totally off, at least to me. I think they should have probably just went with a singular design for Fenyx and not had any customization and made them look just better, I guess. Got to the point where I did find it distracting in some of those cutscenes. But yeah, overall, I think the visuals are great. We've gotten a lot of Greek mythology in games, obviously in titles like God of War, Assassin's Creed, and that, but it's neat seeing these more jovial depictions of the gods as well as these mythical creatures like the Hydra, Cerberus, etc. Which, speaking of all the mythology stuff, the story of this game has a lot to do, of course, with the gods. Essentially, a giant named Typhon has turned all the mortals of the land into stone, as well as turned many of the gods into, well, lesser forms.
He's not...
I am he! Once the mighty god of war, now reduced to an easily startled pile of feathers.
Are you sure?
Does a bear poop in the woods? Sorry.
You play again as the hero of the tale, Fenyx, who is a mortal who hasn't been turned into stone. Maybe you'll find out a bit why when you play, but his brother and the rest of his fellow soldiers have, and he's out to break whatever curse has befallen the land to save his brother, with the help, of course, of the gods. I actually surprisingly liked a lot of the story elements in this game. It plays heavily off of the stories of these gods, tales you may have heard, and how they're just honestly pretty big assholes. Like, even though the game's villain, Typhon, is this big, scary lava demon thing, the more you hear about the gods, the more you feel like he's kind of maybe got a point. And his problem is really with the gods themselves, not as much with mortals. And yeah, you hear him tell these stories like, hey, remember when you turned your wife into a fly and ate her? And what? I did that? Yeah, they're just terrible people. So there's an aspect of bringing humility to the gods, having to come to terms with their flaws a bit, all in a fun way. A Saturday morning cartoon type vibe. Now, that's not to say this is a game necessarily for children. There's a bit of swearing, a lot of sexual innuendos, but it all fits. It'd be hard to tackle a lot of these stories without getting into that territory anyway. While I did like the overall story angle, the writing I felt in this game could be a bit too much at times, too forced. Unlike, say, Breath of the Wild, where you have this feeling of isolation while out in the world, Fenyx Rising has events being narrated by Zeus and Prometheus. We're to understand they're kind of hanging around telling us this story. So while you're playing, whether you're on a story mission or not, they'll regularly just chime in with little quips in that. Some are cringe, and that's done intentionally oftentimes too. like they're hamming it up on purpose, but sometimes things, yeah, just do drag on a bit where I'm like, okay, I get it, you're big funny, now can I focus back on the game?
Phoenix wondered if the oyster was using camouflage.
Prometheus, please. Stop. It's so bad. It's like you went to some kind of clown school. Flunked out. Turned to telling jokes through interpretive dance. And mistook your audience's cries of pain for laughter. Actually, I do feel a little better now.
In terms of gameplay, this is where the big Breath of the Wild comparisons come in. It's an open world game where you can venture around and do all sorts of stuff. Besides tracking the main quest line, there are vaults strewn around the map, which are basically the equivalent to Breath of the Wild's shrines. They range from more puzzle-based to combat-based ones. You've got these bracers that allow you to grab and throw heavy objects. You can fire arrows with a sort of bullet time function where you can control them and make them hit hard-to-reach targets or pass through a series of them. Lots of fun stuff, and the game does a good job of introducing you to various aspects and building the challenge and combining them throughout the game. Never gets like intimidatingly so, like you're probably not going to be stuck on any of these puzzles for a long time, but there's a nice little progression of things to keep it engaging, let's say. But yeah, the vaults, they're bite-sized content, and if you watched my previous video about specifically the Switch version, you know I played this game both on my Series X and Switch with the cross-save function, and the Switch was fantastic for just doing a couple of these whenever I had the time, because yeah, they can be done in a few minutes and will reward you with currency that can be used to upgrade Phoenix. That's actually where things separate a bit more from Breath of the Wild. There are skill trees you can spec into to give yourself new abilities. There's like a shield bash charge that I found really effective, as well as this spear launcher move that's like an AoE, and it throws all the enemies around you in the air, and you can like air combo them. You acquire different armor and weapons, of course, that provide different bonuses, which can also be upgraded. A difference there that many may be very happy to know is there's no weapon breaking in this game, so you don't have to worry about saving that cool weapon for the right moment, only to never end up using it. And of course, you can upgrade your health and stamina meter, which, just like Breath of the Wild, you're not going to want to ignore the stamina because of all the climbing and swimming you'll need to do while you adventure around. The general controls feel of the game are solid. Combat is fast and fluid, just like Breath of the Wild. When you do a perfect dodge, the game will enter slow-mo and you can easily move around your enemies, get more hits off in that. And in fights, I just love how when you hit the killing blow on an enemy, it just launches them like up into the air. Super satisfying. And I liked that while most of the game can be tackled without needing to do too much upgrading, there are challenges that will beat your ass if you're not powered up. There's like one I remember where you go against Achilles. It's totally optional content, and you could beat him if you have like a perfect fight, but without solid upgrades, he's got so much health and does so much damage that he'll just wreck you. The end boss of the game, actually, as well, is a bit of a marathon and will be a struggle if you don't have Phoenix adequately upgraded. I like when the games don't make these RPG mechanics an afterthought. I feel like there's too many games, especially now, that are trying to be, welcoming to everybody, that it's like, oh, you could just ignore and not even upgrade the character and do fine. And again, you can get through most of this game without too much challenge in that regard. And there's an easy as well as even a story difficulty if you still don't want to worry about that stuff. But I like that there's content that seems built specifically with that in mind, like you better upgrade your character a bit. I hope that's something they build on in the upcoming DLC. The game's got a season pass, so obviously there's going to be more content added. Like, I'd like to see things get even more challenging as well as more rewarding, obviously, because, yeah, that's what I think makes people want to go and do all the side stuff so they can become more powerful to better tackle other content. If it doesn't feel like that significant of a benefit, I feel like people just kind of, whatever, and they just skip it altogether. Which, in terms of a single playthrough focusing mostly on story, I did a bit of side stuff, but not nearly all of it. I'd say this game will take you around 25 hours to get through, and it's good stuff. Nothing felt really padded to me. Like, it's a lean 25 hours, I think. So yeah, all in all, I really like this game. I don't think it's, a masterpiece necessarily on the level of Breath of the Wild, but I think it's about as close as you're going to get right now, and it's even better to me that it's a similar experience that's on every platform. Like, I'm happy everyone's going to get a chance to play this type of game. Honestly, the aspect I was most disappointed about with this title is Ubisoft's treatment of it. I seriously wasn't aware the game was about to even come out until like a few days before it did, and I follow the industry pretty close. I've got an ear to the ground, as they say, and its release totally snuck up on me. Didn't seem like there was any sort of push to hype it up or anything, and on top of that, they released it, like a week? Actually, it's a week exactly, right, before Cyberpunk 2077. Cyberpunk has been delayed a bunch of times, but it's like, if I found out Cyberpunk got delayed within the week my game was coming out, I would just delay mine as well to get out of the way. Almost feels in a lot of ways like it was sent to die, and there's no reason for it. It's a solid game. I think a lot of these circumstances could spell trouble for it, sales-wise. We'll have to see after a couple of weeks how it's faring, but yeah, I hope it does well because it's a really good game. And once more, I think it's fantastic, particularly for people that maybe don't have a Switch, aren't able to play a Breath of the Wild type experience like this. Obviously, like I said, heavily inspired by that game, but a cheap knockoff, I don't think so. Yes, there's tons of similarities, but we kind of have to accept the fact that this is going to be kind of a genre going forward, and I think this is the best one, besides, of course, Breath of the Wild, that we've gotten so far. I know a lot of people like Genshin Impact, and I think that game's actually really good for a free-to-play game, but does have a lot of the grindy drawbacks of the gacha system, where this is much more obviously like a traditional, tried-and-true game. I strongly recommend it. Again, for people who aren't able to play Breath of the Wild, you should really give this a shot. Maybe it will make you want to see the game that sort of kickstarted this style of game. Like, maybe you'll play this and be like, man, I should really try that Breath of the Wild game. And if you just want more of that type of game, then yeah, you really can't do any better, in my opinion, than Immortals Fenyx Rising. Anyway, with that, this video's a wrap. Let me know your thoughts on Immortals Fenyx Rising in the comments. Are you currently playing the game? What do you think about it? Hey guys, hope you enjoyed this discussion of Immortals Fenyx Rising. If you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing. If you want to keep the conversation going, hit me up on Twitter @JohnnyZakari. And join my Discord, ChiGuy and Friends. Link to both in the description below. And as always, thanks for watching.